Hey there, welcome back to Flat Tire Farm. This is going to be the first in our video series of, I don't know, however long we decide to do it for, of spending some extra time with us by the campfire. This is our first campfire of the season. It's just the beginning of April, and Mr. Reeve and I spend a lot of time out by the campfire the second we can get out here, which is why you see we have a campfire and there's still mountains of snow. On this first campfire video of the series, we're going to sit, enjoy some of our homemade root beer, and share with you a little bit more about us.
Miss Crystal, how long have you lived in Alaska?
Well, I'm old now. I think, how old am I? I think I'm 45. Is that how old I am? We're going with that.
I don't know, sure.
I'm either 44 or 45. But I moved here when I was 4 years old. My dad was in the Air Force, and we lived in, I couldn't even tell you how many states before I was 4 years old and moved here, and I've been here ever since. So I've been here at least 40 years, I'll tell you that. How about you, Mr. Reeve?
I was born here. I was born in Fairbanks, Alaska, and then I was, for the most part, raised in Wasilla, Alaska.
That's where we lived before we moved to the homestead, too.
Yep.
That's back when we had our half-acre homestead in the cul-de-sac where we had, what did we have, 3 pigs, 2 goats. We just had Hansel and Gretel, too many roosters, too many unhappy neighbors, and some egg-laying chickens that kind of foraged in our little forest area in the open lot next to us. We raised meat chickens in our front yard, and what else did we do? We had
turned the backyard into a garden.
Oh yeah, we completely obliterated the whole backyard, and we put a greenhouse, 25 by 25 garden, a raspberry patch. What else was back there?
We used the power lines for the potato patch.
Oh yeah, the power line company comes through every 10 years and chops down the trees so they don't hit the power lines and cause a fire. And so we were really lucky because they had just like come through and gave us like 50 more feet of yard we didn't have. Yeah. So we dug that up, we put potatoes in there, we had a chive bed in the front, and there was one more thing. What else did we do? Oh yes, we had, back by the RV parking, I popped a whole bunch of those puffball mushrooms and made a little puffball mushroom forest back there. Yeah. So we, needless to say, we outgrew that property.
Yeah, we did.
Pretty quickly. And we had a dog and a cat.
Yep.
Yeah, we had lots of stuff.
You got a question for me? For the great and powerful Reeve?
Sorry. This is the nature of our existence. Okay, Mr. Reeve, the great and powerful.
That's right.
Okay, so you love to garden.
Yeah.
You love to garden more than I love to garden.
I don't know about that.
Fair enough. No, you don't think so?
You don't
Maybe
love to
now.
garden?
You started out loving gardening way more than I did.
Yeah.
Not that I hated gardening, I just had no idea about it. So where did you get this love of gardening?
I think from growing up. I grew up with 4 siblings.
Okay, I'm editing this video right now, and for the record, Mr. Reeve has 3 siblings. He has 3 sisters. Maybe there's a mystery sibling I don't know about. If we ever find them, we'll be sure to let you know.
So we had a pretty big family. We always had a huge garden because back then in the 80s in Alaska, you couldn't afford vegetables. They were expensive, you know, unless you grew them yourself. So we always had this huge garden.
Yeah, and things were in the store seasonally.
Right.
Like now, I mean, we're talking 30, 40 years later, you can go in the store and you get a papaya any time of year. You can get a tomato any time of year, a cucumber any time of year.
Bananas in January.
Yeah, bananas in January. But when we grew up, you went to the grocery store and they almost always had lettuce and potatoes and carrots. And most of the time there was tomatoes, but like you only got, actually still asparagus, we only get it once a year.
Yeah.
It only comes in season, but back then there was like almost nothing. And produce, everything you ate in a can, all vegetables came in a can.
Yeah.
You know, I was, I don't know, 40 some years old before I had a green bean nut from a can. I mean, you know, everything came in a can. But sorry, so so your family grew food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we grow a big garden. Broccoli, cauliflower, lettuce, cabbage, peas. We didn't grow beans, which was lame. I mean, we tried a couple times, but it didn't really work. So we didn't really grow beans. Lots of potatoes, carrots.
Now, did your parents start gardening just as they become adults and had children, or I know your dad had some farm experience, right?
Right. We didn't garden anywhere except in Alaska.
Really?
Yeah. From what I can remember.
Yeah. And he grew up on a cucumber farm or something, right? Didn't he grow up?
Zucchinis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he grew up growing zucchinis.
He grew up on a homestead in Washington, and they would grow zucchinis for market.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Now, I do know that you have a tattletale story of your sister about broccoli planting.
The trouble is, I cannot confirm nor deny whether I joined in
Okay,
this
all right.
activity.
Okay, well, how about we don't name what
Right.
sister,
Yeah.
but would you like to tell them your favorite broccoli story?
Yeah, so when we were growing up, we were a lot less excited about the garden, my sisters and I. I have 3 sisters. And so when the parents weren't looking, we would divide as equally as possible broccoli starts between the trees and the garden. We'd just chuck them into the trees when Dad wasn't looking.
Yeah. Did you guys not like the broccoli, or you just didn't like planting it?
I think I always liked broccoli.
Yeah.
I don't know about, this particular sister. I'll have to ask her.
Let's ask her if she likes
What
broccoli.
started the whole thing?
Maybe she'll leave a comment and fess up. Yeah.
So how about you, Miss Crystal? Did you garden as a kid, number 1? And number 2, you say, I love the garden more in the beginning than you did. What made you turn around? So 2 questions. I'm cheating.
Oh, goodness. I can't remember us having a garden.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever had a garden. I can't remember us having a garden. My parents were super busy. We didn't have money. We didn't buy cheese. We didn't buy paper towels. I don't know. We should have gardened. That would have been a smart idea. No, we never gardened. And no, we didn't garden when I was a kid. So I think the answer to the question of why did I get into gardening and why do I love it now, as maybe I didn't before. Well, I didn't grow up loving gardening. You ate everything from a can, you know. And I think I started loving it because it's cheap. If you don't know me, I'm cheap. Right. I'm really cheap. And if you could grow something, produce is everything's expensive here. You kind of probably know that. But produce is it's a huge expenditure. It's you can buy beef or you can buy tomatoes, Right. They're both really expensive. And so for me, it was about, this epiphany. What do you mean I can grow my own stuff? What do you mean I can grow something and take care of it and not have to buy it at the store? And so I did a lot of trial and error, I think, as a young adult. A lot of error more than trial, I think. But, I tried all kinds of crazy stuff. And now I think I have a lot of knowledge now from trial and error. But I think when Reeve and I got married, he had this gardening knowledge, and I have this passion for being a cheapskate. And so I think we just kind of built that knowledge together. And this garden that we grew out in the middle of the woods in a state that most people can only grow potatoes and carrots was absolutely phenomenal and just amazing last year.
Yep.
I have never been so happy and so just full of joy with the things that we dug out of the dirt as we did last summer.
And it's been quite a tough road for us because when I grew up gardening, it was the typical, chemical gardening where you tilled the garden twice a year, used chemical fertilizers and all these chemicals and stuff, and that's what made things grow so well. But when we did it, we decided that we were going to teach ourselves to do it without any chemical fertilizers, and it was pretty bleak for the first couple years.
Boys, because plant food costs money, if you didn't know, but I'll tell you, if you have animals, poop is free. And we have, if you watch some of our gardening videos last year, and we'll do it again this year, how we put nutrients into our soil for free, for like really real for free.
Yeah.
Real things that aren't colored blue or purple, or, you know, that is just like, you don't buy it in a box and it's all, you know, chemical fertilizer, which I'm sure grows things really great, except the downfall of that is that you don't have this sustainable soil. You know, you have to continually put the fertilizer in every year or nothing grows, because the plants eat the fertilizer. They don't eat what's in the soil, they eat what you put in the soil. And if you grow your soil and you add organic things like poop and hay and spent grain, and we put bone meal in there, and we put like all these real things, then the soil will keep producing for you.
As long as you feed the soil rather than trying to feed the plants chemicals.
Right. And like, you know, I don't know about where you live, but for chemical fertilizers over the last year, 2 years, like we have really lovely, wonderful friends that that own you know, a hay business. And in Alaska, you may not know this, but in Alaska you get 1 harvest of hay and maybe 2 if you're lucky and there's enough sun before August comes. And so their fertilizer was, they have a lot of land, okay? But they were buying fertilizer to fertilize their hay every year, and it was $6,000, which was fine. That was, you know, they could get a good return on that, and they could sell their hay for $12 for a 50-pound square bale, right? And but when chemical fertilizer became more expensive, astronomically more expensive, it went from $6,000 to $15,000, and they couldn't do it. Like, you lose your complete profit margin. And you've probably heard me talk about it many times, because I'm kind of grouchy about it. Like, animals need hay, and that's a really great way to feed them, these animals that eat grass. Because see the snow, there's no grass, so we have to buy hay, but hay is really expensive. It's $25 a bale here. And even, you know, the hay farmers were selling their hay for $25 a bale, but they couldn't fertilize enough to get the hay to grow. So our friends got this really, really minuscule, yucky, not so great hay harvest. And I don't even think they were able to sell hay last year.
Nope, they didn't sell any. In fact, I think they had to buy some in. Because
they have cows, and so normally they feed their cows with what they grow, and what they have in excess, then they're able to sell and kind of recoup some of the costs. But that wasn't even possible for them this year.
And even for us, we none of the farms that we usually go to for our hay needs had hay for us. So we had to actually buy hay that was brought in from outside.
Yeah, hay that was brought in from Washington. That's the only hay that's available in Alaska right now, anyways, that I know of. And, you know, and so long story short, sorry, that it is who I am, is that having self-sustaining soil, or having fertilizer that is kind of grows on your own property, like poop or dead leaves or dead hay, you know, that is a huge benefit to us.
And some of these farms around now, particularly our good friends, are getting into some rotational grazing, because they also have a beef operation.
It's okay, girl. You'll hear the dogs in the background. It's all of our videos. She's on the hunt. He was saying it's going to take them some time to build their soil. Okay, we decided to switch sides because I had one hot leg and one cold leg, and for some reason Mr. Reed had an opposite hot leg and an opposite cold leg. So we're evening it out here a little bit.
That's right.
If any of you are new to our channel and you don't know where we're at or what we're doing, I guess we should give you the quick rundown. We live in Alaska. We live in Willow, Alaska, which is a rural area. We live on 40 acres where we bought basically a 40-acre plot of land that was all forested. And we have bit by bit given ourselves mostly a driveway and a small dry cabin, which is very unfinished. And that's okay, because like the property and building the infrastructure, the property is way more important to us right now. So when you see my walls with no sheetrock, you'll know why. But we live in a dry cabin, like I said, and that means that we don't have plumbing, we don't have running water, In the summertime, we do collect rain catchment water to feed animals and feed the garden as much as we can.
Yep.
We haul water for our own water needs. We heat with wood. We have a wood stove.
Yep.
And anything else?
Now we will eventually have plumbing, but for now we're hauling water.
Oh, I know what else. One other important thing is that we have a small solar system. We have 4 solar panels and a 2,000 watt inverter, which just means that at any given time, the most power that we can use is 2,000 watts. And if you don't know about electricity a whole bunch, your microwave is 1,500 watts when it runs, and your blow dryer is 1,500 watts, and your coffee pot is 1,500 watts when it runs. And so we live on a very small scaled power system. And part of our journey has been figuring out how to make that happen and how to make that feasible, and how to live with the things that that we want to live with, and be able to live without the things that our system can't handle, and how to live without those things. Like we don't have a blow dryer. I guess we do have a blow dryer, but we don't use it. We don't have a coffee pot that plugs in. We don't have a lot of stuff that plugs in, but things we do have that most people have, like we have a refrigerator and we do have a chest freezer. But if you kind of watch some of our other videos about living off grid, you'll see how we navigate those things to be able to live as mostly normal, I guess, and mainstream as possible. Being able to adjust to different ways of, you know, heating, cooling, ventilation, things like that. The things that you all are going to use your power for. Yeah. So people in our area, we live in a very small, it's not even considered a town or a city. It's just an area. Most people have heating oil that they heat with, and heating oil stoves to keep their houses warm, because there's no natural gas here.
Right.
There is electricity, but there's no natural gas. There's no city water. We don't have anything. Lots of places in Alaska, there's no city water, and people heat with heating oil. So in lots of places in Alaska, I mean, you would consider it off-grid, because, I mean, very few places have city water, city power, city natural gas. It's just,
I guess so.
It's just not really the lifestyle here at all. Like the big cities like Anchorage and Fairbanks, they have all of those things. So there are places, but I would say definitely more than 50% of the state does not have those 3 things.
Oh, sure.
And in our area, there's lots and lots of people that homestead. It is just the culture here for sure.
So we had planned at this point to have a well.
Oh yeah.
However, our 40 acres is sort of a long and slender property, and so we live about a third of a mile back. We have about a third of a mile driveway to get to our cabin, and it ended up being a very rough driveway. So the money that we had for getting a well drilled, we had to put into getting an actual passable driveway put in.
Yeah, you know, we both have 4-wheel drive vehicles. Living where we live and as far out as we live, and the road conditions and the snow and the winter, we find it to be very securing, I think, to have 4-wheel drive vehicles. And it means we can get in and out of our property. And it's a really nice idea to kind of live back away in your property and not right up on the front, you know, where the road and everybody else is. But then you have to think about, you have to get back there. And we forgot about that part. You know, we thought, well, I mean, the first year we were driving over just sawed off stumps, you know, like seriously, seriously, you had to be careful. Your truck was going to bottom out on the stumps.
Yep.
And that's what we did the first year. And that was great. And if you don't know, we also live, every couple of years there is wildfires that just run rampant. Because, you know, there's not city water. There's no fire hydrant. You can't just like plug in a hose to a fire hydrant and put your fire out. It doesn't work. And if the power lines, if you have a well and the power lines go out and you don't have an off-grid power source, you don't have a way to get water. Your well doesn't work without power. You know, one year, maybe a couple years, maybe it was last year, year before, we were way down the road having dinner, and our friend texted us, hey, there's a fire on your road. And it was like, what do you mean there's a fire on our road? And you know, 2 or 3 properties away, there had been a fire started. Somebody had burned some trash and that didn't go well. And so we jumped in the truck and raced home. But it made me realize that, You know, it's all good and great and fabulous that our 4-wheel drive trucks can drive over the stumps to get back here, but a fire truck could never get back here. You know, and that's when we were like, okay, we have to bite the bullet. We have to make a passable driveway. We need to be safe. So that was kind of giving up on the well dream, at least for a while. We do have a modified well dream, but it's just not in play yet, and it might not happen this summer because what's our big focus this year, Mr. Reeve?
We have got to get the barn built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The barn. We need a barn, if you don't know that, because we have lots of animals. And we have
almost enough.
And we have done a very good job making sure that their needs are met in the winter, which is another reason why our house is very far from being unfinished. But they need a barn. They need a big structure. We need a place to store stuff. Like when you live off grid, you don't quite realize all the stuff you have that needs to be stored under shelter, like a tractor or equipment or anything that gets buried in the snow.
Feed.
Yeah, animal feed and everything. As you can see, everything gets buried in the snow here. So if you don't have it under cover somewhere, you're out of luck. Like we have a 6-foot crawl space, so kind of for us it's a basement because we're both pretty short people. But it is just full of all the things that really should be stored outside. You know, we had 3 shelter logics we bought, and we tried to store stuff in those. But they can handle the roof of a really fancy, expensive $900 shelter logic, alpine style shelter logic can hold 40 pounds of snow per square foot. Well, when you build in Willow, Alaska, your roof needs to be able to handle 90 to 100 pounds of snow per square foot.
Yep.
Hence, we have had, well, lots of damaged shelter logics. 3 now. They've all gotten damaged by the snow, but there's some extra damage that occurred via wind and or tractor. But so the barn will also provide for us place to store hay and feed and animals and work on a tractor, you know. Like if you've watched any of our videos, you'll know that everything freezes in the middle of winter and we can't start any of the things that we need to be able to clear our property so that we can get to the road. You know, that has been not a struggle for me because I just smile and make the dinner, but Mr. Reeve is like day after day after day fought, freezing to death at 20 or 30 below to try to get things started. So P.S. we need a barn. Did you get that part? Yeah. So that's what's got to happen. The other project I'm really hoping to get done this summer is to paint the outside of the house. Right now we just have particle board siding. It's OSB, yeah? Or particle board?
OSB.
Oh yeah. Okay, OSB. That's the fancy term for what's on the side of our house. If you drive around Willow, you'll see that OSB is kind of, you know, the wall surface of choice for exterior walls and once in a while some Tyvek wrap with staples. Most of it is torn and blown off. But we are really gonna try to protect our house from the moisture in the winter and the summer. And so hopefully that's my job. Paint the house.
Yeah, chippity chop.
I know. It's just so much work. You know, doing a homestead and doing things on your own is extremely satisfying.
It is.
It is absolutely soul enriching, but it is a lot of work.
Yeah.
It is a lot of work. And I have heard, you know, we watched a lot of channels that do homesteading for years and years and years before we decided to do this. Well, when we knew we were going to do it, but before we figured out how we were going to do it, because we wanted to have a clue. And they're all like, if you don't want to work, you should not do this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I want to work, but holy buckets. There is very little rest. There's very little rest. And way less rest for Mr. Reeve than there is for me, because he does all the really hard things. I cook the dinner and do the garden and preserve the food. Right. And, you know, but Mr. Reeve is hauling trees out of the forest and, you know, trying to get stuff to run in the winter and dealing with the snow every time it snows. Yep. It is a full-time job just to maintain living. You know, if we don't plow the snow out to the driveway, we can't get out to get water. We can't go out. If you don't know, we both still have full-time jobs.
Yep.
Mr. Reeve is a licensed contractor. I'm sorry if the smoke is getting in the way. I'm not sure we can avoid that. And I work full-time running a medical office, working with kids doing some therapeutic things. And so we are both off the homestead. I'm off the homestead 50 hours a week at least.
Yep.
You know.
For me, it depends on the season.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If it's baby goat season, Mr.
I'm here, yeah.
Yeah, every time we think there's a goat, nope, I'm staying home today. Their babies are coming. They never come when we think they're coming, but anyways, it's a lot of work. Yeah, I don't think I would do it different.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd do it different.
It's a lot of work, but at the same time, it's a very intentional way to live. You appreciate things so much more.
Yeah.
I think, but it is tough. So, with that being said,
yes,
what?
We should slow down the rambling and answer a real question for our viewers. Is that what you're trying to say?
I don't know. But it made me think of a good one. It made me think of a good one.
Okay, what you got?
What? Pick something, or maybe a couple things that most surprised you about moving out here. So we are both lifelong Alaskans, but there are some things that surprised us about the short move that we did. What's one for you?
I'll tell you the first 3 things that surprised me, and they're all small, but they were so meaningful the first year, and they may be silly, but this is my answer, okay?
Okay.
When we first came out here, I couldn't figure out why all the trees were bent. They were all bent in different directions. They all seriously look like arcs, and if you watched our videos, you've seen them coming down our driveway. It's like going through an arched driveway. Yeah. It's really cool, and I'm like, all these trees are dying. No,
and
that's
these aren't
not
saplings. These are
big trees.
4 or 5 inch birch trees.
Right. And I thought, okay, it must just get really windy here. But I'm like, then all the trees would go the same way.
Direction.
But they don't. They're like mismatch here and there and everywhere. And so we didn't figure it out because we moved here and it was May.
Spring. Yep.
Yeah, it was May 16th, I think, was our first night we lived out here. Or we stayed out here in the camper. Stuck in the mud in the middle of the would-be driveway, but let's tell that story another day. So then we lived here all summer, and then the winter came, and then all the snow weighs so heavily on the trees that it makes them bow down, and the more it snows, the more they come down. Like, I'll drive down the driveway when it snowed a lot, and the tops of the trees are hitting my windshield as I'm driving down the driveway, because that's just what it is. So that was the first thing that surprised me, that I was like, that I had to figure out.
Yeah. When they bend down like that and you hit them with your truck as you're going by, then you knock the snow off and they come back up.
And then they come back up, right? You knock the ice off that has melted and dripped down. Okay, here's the other thing. People drive nice. They follow the rules and are respectful. And this, like the school bus drivers, if you're behind them, they'll pull over and let you pass. They purposefully stop, pull over at the coffee shop, pull over off the side of the road when it's safe, and they let you pass by.
Yep.
And the plow truck people, listen, if you're a plow truck driver in Willow, Alaska, you get an A+ from me because you guys are amazing. The plow truck drivers, they're so nice. If they can see way far ahead, because they take up the whole road. And if it's safe for you to pass them, they will signal and pull over like, hey, come on, you can pass now, it's safe. Like, who does that? I love it. Yep. So, the driving, totally different. Like, nice drivers, for the most part. Like, there's still some ding-dongs, but for the most part, the general population of drivers is very lovely. Juniper.
Never mind the dog barfing.
Right, she's just hacking up a hairball or something. Okay, here's the last thing. All my answers are weird. I'm sorry. It's what I got. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the other thing that I found was extremely odd, and our neighbors are very lovely, and so I'll call them and be like, why are people doing this? Why is this happening? What does this mean? And they are just kind of laugh at us and are like, this is what this means. You know, you haven't lived in Willow before. But in the springtime, there's all these giant berms of snow along the side of the road from the plow trucks that have plowed all the snow. And then as the snowbank thaws, these frozen moose will appear out of the snowbank. Yeah. Like many of them. And the first spring that I lived here, I thought, oh my gosh, somebody is poaching all of these animals because they're just dead on the side of the road. And so I talked to the neighbors and I'm like, what is happening? Why is this going on? Like, you would see, like, in the course of a week, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 moose emerge, depending on how fast the snow melts. And we had one at the end of our road even.
Yep.
And so what happens is there's so much snow, so many feet of snow builds up in Willow that they can't get through the snow to get to the food. And basically they just starve to death. It's really sad, actually. So
the weaker animals just don't make it through the winters. Right.
And a lot of the animals are babies that their moms get hit on the road. There's a lot of, you know, like car wrecks from moose in Alaska. As the food supply gets lesser and lesser in the mountains because the snow gets too deep for the moose to navigate through, they come down the mountain more and more, and then they end up on the roadways and in the more populated areas. And so there's a lot of accidents. And you don't want to hit a moose, I'll tell you that. It's like hitting 1,600 pounds going 60 miles an hour.
It's not like hitting a deer.
It's a life-threatening situation, or can be. Okay, so how about let's talk about a happier subject. What's your favorite thing? What is your favorite thing about what we have done living this life, about making this decision to live off-grid and homestead? What has been your favorite or most rewarding thing?
What's been my most rewarding thing? That's kind of a tough one. There's a lot of things. Like, I really appreciate how intentional this lifestyle is. It's as hard as it is. The warmth feels better when, you know, you have to get the firewood, you know.
Yeah.
And the vegetables taste better when you grow them and all that. But I think what has really been the biggest impact for me, I think, is the critters. You know,
I would agree with that for you, for sure.
You know, being there for baby goats, and, you know, never grew up doing that. Even, you know, as much as, you know, I grew up hunting and fishing and all that, but I'd never raised an animal and butchered it before we were out here, you know. Apart from chickens, you know, we started with the meat chickens before we left, but you know, we've put a couple pigs in the freezer since we've been out here, and that was a first. Gosh, there's so many things. I don't know. I very much have enjoyed the space and just beginning to manage the forests around, and yeah, it's you know, they say don't fall in love with real estate, but I just love it out here.
Okay, I think we got the left side and the right side warmed up, but now it's time to warm up the back side and the front side.
So, what would you say is your favorite thing about having moved out here?
Well, we haven't lived out here for very long yet, right? We're still just trying to build things. I think my favorite, you know, I know my favorite thing.
Okay.
My absolute favorite thing about living this life, not living in a house that's using, you know, 50 kilowatts of power a day, is it's quiet.
Oh, yeah.
There's not the forced air heating vent coming on every time the heat comes on. There's not the water in the pipes running through the walls. There's not the ceiling fan coming on, the bathroom fan coming on, the toilet flushing. There's none of those things. There's not the pump kicking on, filling up the holding tank every time you turn the water on. There's all of these mechanical noises and hums in a house that we don't have. Right. And I love that.
Right.
I love that. It is so peaceful. The only thing that kicks on in our house is the refrigerator. And our refrigerator does sound like a banshee because we bought a cheap refrigerator. So that took a little bit of me to get used to, waking up in the middle of the night thinking somebody's in the woods dying, screaming, getting eaten by a bear. No, it's just the fridge. Go back to bed.
And there's no covering on the walls.
Right.
And with where our bed is, which is right on the other side of that wall.
Right. So like my head is at the fridge. It's at the screaming banshee fridge. But aside from the fridge, there's no noise in our house. There is no fans that kick on. There's no electrical buzz. There's none of that. And it's just wonderful. That's my favorite part. I have lots of great things that I love, but that is my favorite, is the peace. And that I can step outside and it's quiet. In the wintertime, you can hear the creek. The creek from, I don't know how far away it is.
Willow Creek? Yeah, I don't know. It's a good ways over.
You can hear it running.
Yeah.
And you can hear the snow falling.
Yeah.
And you can hear the trees cracking, the ice cracking on the trees when the sun comes out after it's been really cold. It's just fabulous.
And then when I go to bed at night, I'll stoke up the wood stove in the winter, of course. And when I lay down, you can hear the fire crackling in the wood stove.
I had to get used to that. I didn't have to get used to hearing the fire crackling, but the light, the light from the
Flickering
fire,
light.
flickering on the ceiling or whatever, because you know we don't have walls. And so you're laying there in bed and you're like, holy crap, the house is on fire. Wait, no, it's okay. Our wood stove has glass in the front that's supposed to look like that. So that has taken me like 2.5 years to be able to get over that.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we didn't bore you to death. I hope you enjoyed our little campfire video. We plan to have more of them. Tell us if you liked it or didn't like it. Tell us if you like this style of video. Our goal is not to let this video replace other videos, but to be something in addition to the videos that we do post already. So don't feel like we're trying to shortchange you. We're just trying to give you something a little extra. So as always, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one, guys.
Spring's here.
Let's get the hot dogs.
Yeah.